Imagine for a moment that you wake up tomorrow morning, and every single thought that crosses your mind begins shaping your future. Not metaphorically, but literally. The images, the fears, the dreams, the quiet whispers of what you believe is possible, all of it starts taking form. Most people would suddenly become very careful about what they think. But the truth is, that's already happening. Every thought you hold, every belief you nurture, every expectation you repeat is silently sculpting your destiny. You become exactly what you think about. We live in a world overflowing with opportunity. Yet most people drift through life like ships without rudders, letting the winds of circumstance decide where they'll end up. They never stop to ask, what am I really thinking about most of the time? Because if they did, they might discover that their minds are preoccupied not with goals, not with purpose, but with worry, doubt, and limitation. And so, their lives produce exactly that limitation. The person who succeeds is not necessarily the most talented, the strongest, or the luckiest, but the one who has learned the quiet power of disciplined thought. The mind, you see, is a field, a plot of rich, fertile soil. Whatever you plant will grow. If you plant corn, you'll get corn. If you plant nightshade, a deadly poison, you'll get nightshade. It doesn't care what you plant. It will return whatever you sow. The human mind works the same way. If you plant seeds of success, of faith, courage, and determination, your life will yield success. But if you plant seeds of fear, anxiety, and self-doubt, your harvest will be misery and frustration. The mind is astonishingly obedient. It gives you precisely what you demand of it. Now, what separates the few who rise from the many who drift? It is simply this: purposeful thinking. The successful man or woman decides exactly what they want. They hold that vision constantly before their mind, day after day, until it becomes part of them. They imagine it, feel it, believe it, and act in harmony with it. And soon the world rearranges itself to match their dominant thoughts. The unsuccessful person, on the other hand, allows their mind to wander, to think about what they don't want, what they fear, and what they doubt. And nature, ever neutral, delivers that instead. You can change your entire life by changing what you think about. Begin today. Picture the person you wish to become. See it clearly, feel it deeply, and hold it firmly. Do not let the world, with its noise and confusion, pull you away from that image. You will be amazed at how quickly life begins to align itself with your vision, because life always follows the direction of your dominant thoughts. So guard your mind as you would the most precious treasure you own. Choose your thoughts the way an artist chooses colors, carefully, deliberately. For the picture you paint in your mind today becomes the life you live tomorrow. Remember this simple, eternal truth: you become exactly what you think about. There is a quiet truth that governs the destiny of every man and woman on this earth. A truth so simple that most people overlook it, and yet so powerful that it determines the course of every life. You see, the human mind is not a passive vessel. It is the most creative force known to mankind. Every achievement, every invention, every empire, every act of greatness that has ever come into existence began first as a single thought, a spark, a vision, a mental image held long enough and believed deeply enough to move into reality. And so it follows that whatever occupies your mind most of the time will shape your character, direct your actions, and ultimately build your life. You become exactly what you think about. Think for a moment about the mysterious power that resides within your own thoughts. Right now, in this very instant, your mind is forming impressions, weaving possibilities, deciding what is or isn't possible for you. Those thoughts may seem invisible, intangible, yet they are as real as gravity. They are building your habits, influencing your words, guiding your responses to every event that touches your life. The man who constantly thinks of success, growth, and contribution will be led, perhaps slowly, perhaps in unexpected ways, toward success, growth, and contribution. The man who allows his mind to dwell on fear, lack, or defeat will, without fail, move in that direction. Life does not respond to chance, it responds to belief. It is astonishing how few people realize that they are, at this very moment, creating their future through the nature of their thoughts. They may complain about circumstances, about the economy, about the behavior of others, yet rarely do they stop and examine the one factor over which they have complete control: what they choose to think about. Every day, thousands wake up and hand their minds over to chance, to gossip, to worry, to television, to the opinions of others. and then wonder why their lives feel directionless. But the truth is simple: the mind must have a master. It cannot wander aimlessly and still produce anything of value. The thoughts you hold are not idle, they are seeds, and nature will return them to you multiplied. Consider for a moment how powerful this law is. Picture a farmer standing before his field. He has a choice: he can plant corn, or he can plant poison. The soil does not care. Its job is to return what it's given. The farmer plants, tends, and in time, harvests exactly what he sowed. So it is with the mind. You may choose to fill it with ideas of abundance, courage, and service. And in time, life will bring you opportunities, relationships, and circumstances that mirror those ideas. Or you may fill it with resentment, doubt, and complaint. And the results will appear with the same certainty. The soil does not judge, and neither does life. It gives back in kind. If you truly understood this, you would begin to guard your mind as you would guard your most precious possession. You would no longer speak carelessly, nor entertain destructive thoughts even for a moment. You would begin each day by deciding deliberately what you will think about, what image you will hold before your mind, and what kind of person you will be. You would no longer drift through life reacting to whatever happens. You would start directing your thoughts, and therefore your destiny. For every time you think about a goal, a dream, or a noble idea, you are watering the seed of that thought. Every time you think of failure, fear, or limitation, you are watering weeds. It's a simple choice, but one that determines everything. The tragedy is that most people never make that choice. They spend their lives absorbed in the thoughts handed to them by others, their families, their peers, their culture. They do not stop to question whether those thoughts serve them. They think the way the crowd thinks, do what the crowd does, and wonder why they end up where the crowd ends up. The rare individual who breaks free from this pattern is the one who begins to think for himself, to choose his own thoughts, to design his own life from the inside out. That person may start with nothing but a single idea. Yet that idea, nurtured and believed in, becomes a guiding star that transforms everything. Right now, you are holding the steering wheel of your life, though you may not realize it. The direction you travel will not be decided by luck, education, or background, but by the quiet pattern of your daily thinking. What are you thinking about when you wake up in the morning? What occupies your mind as you go through your day? Are you thinking of growth, of service, of creation, or of worry, of what might go wrong, of what you lack? The answer to that question will reveal not only where you are today, but where you are going. Because the mind, like a faithful servant, takes its instructions from the master, and that master is you. So the greatest challenge in life is not to change the world around you, but to change the world within you. When you take command of your thoughts, when you decide, firmly and consistently, to think only of what you desire and not of what you fear, you begin to shape a life of purpose, direction, and meaning. And that is not a theory, nor a philosophy, but a law of nature as sure as gravity itself. You become exactly what you think about, and what you think about day after day becomes the story of your life. There is something profoundly strange about human nature. We are surrounded by endless opportunity, yet so few ever claim it. Every man and woman has within them the capacity for greatness, yet only a handful ever rise to live it. Why? Because most people never learn to control the direction of their thoughts. They allow their minds to drift, to follow the current of the crowd, to be swayed by the noise of the world. They look around and see others living aimless lives, and they imitate them, believing that this is simply the way things are. But the truth is, life will always give you exactly what you demand of it, no more, no less. The problem is not the lack of opportunity, the problem is the lack of focus. Every day begins as a blank page, a chance to move closer to the kind of life you want. Yet instead of writing something deliberate on that page, most people allow it to be filled with distractions, fears, and trivial pursuits. They worry about things beyond their control, they complain about circumstances, they fill their minds with doubt. They never stop to ask, what am I truly thinking about? Because if they did, they would realize that their dominant thoughts are not about progress or purpose, but about worry, comparison, and limitation. And since life mirrors our thinking, their results reflect exactly that confusion. Look around and you will see that the vast majority of people live by default rather than design. They do not plan their days, they do not set goals, and they do not imagine a future worth working toward. Instead, they allow events to control them. The news dictates their mood. Other people's opinions dictate their confidence, and chance dictates their opportunities. They have forgotten that the mind, like a powerful engine, must have a destination. Without a clear goal, it burns energy but goes nowhere. You can have the finest ship, the strongest sails, and the most favorable wind. But if you have no port in mind, you will drift endlessly in circles. The difference between those who succeed and those who struggle lies in a single decision to think on purpose. The successful individual is not lucky, he is focused. He decides, very clearly, what he wants, and he holds that image before his mind until it becomes as real to him as the ground beneath his feet. He refuses to entertain thoughts that contradict his vision. He fills his days with ideas, words, and actions that support his goal. Over time, his thoughts begin to influence his behavior shapes his habits, and his habits form his destiny. Success becomes not a matter of chance, but of cause and effect. Now consider the other side. The man who has no clear picture of what he wants becomes a victim of circumstance. His thoughts are not disciplined. They wander from one worry to another. He spends his time thinking about what he doesn't want. The debts he fears, the obstacles ahead, the opinions of others. And because his attention is fixed on those things, his actions naturally follow the same path. He talks about problems instead of possibilities. He sees difficulty where others see opportunity, and life gives him more of what he continually dwells upon. The mind, remember, does not distinguish between what we want and what we fear. It simply brings forth what we think about most. The tragedy is that this law is impartial. It will serve you faithfully or destroy you indifferently, depending on how you use it. You cannot think in one direction and live in another. If you think thoughts of growth, you will grow. If you think thoughts of failure, you will fail. It cannot be otherwise. This is why it is so important to take responsibility for your thinking. Once you realize that your mind is the source of everything that happens in your life, you begin to understand the power you possess. No one can control your thoughts but you. No government, no circumstance, no other person. Only you decide what ideas will live in your mind. When you take control of that power, everything changes. You begin to see that you are not a victim of the world, you are the architect of your reality. The circumstances you experience are simply the reflection of the thoughts you've been holding over time. Change your thinking, and your environment must change with it. This is not wishful thinking. It is a law as consistent as any law of nature. The mind is the original cause. The world around you is merely the effect. So if you wish to rise above the crowd, begin by examining your own thoughts. Ask yourself honestly, what occupies my mind most of the time? Are you thinking about progress, creation, and service, or are you consumed with worry, comparison, and fear? Every moment spent in negative thinking is a moment spent moving backward. Every moment spent in constructive thought moves you forward, even if only by an inch. Over time, those inches add up to miles. The secret, then, is to live with intention. Decide what you want, believe that it is possible, and let your thoughts be guided by that belief. Don't allow the noise of the world to dictate what you think or who you become. The person who learns to control his thoughts learns to control his life. The one who does not becomes like a leaf in the wind, blown about by every passing breeze, never arriving anywhere of value. The direction of your life is the direction of your thinking, and every moment you spend mastering that truth brings you closer to the person you were meant to be. Picture in your mind a stretch of rich, dark soil, untouched, waiting, silent. You hold in your hand 2 seeds, one of wheat, one of deadly nightshade. You plant both, cover them gently, and walk away. Time passes, rain falls, the sun shines, and soon both begin to grow. The soil does not protest. It does not favor one seed over the other. It does not judge. It simply returns to you what you planted. That is the law of the soil. And that, too, is the law of the mind. Whatever you plant in it, whatever thoughts you nurture and repeat will grow, whether they are good or bad, helpful or harmful, creative or destructive. The mind, like the earth, gives back exactly what it receives. Most people spend their lives unaware of this truth. They fill their minds carelessly with thoughts of worry, limitation, anger, and doubt, and then wonder why their lives produce confusion, failure, and frustration. They are like farmers who plant weeds and expect a harvest of grain. They do not understand that their results, every success, every difficulty, are the natural outcome of the seeds they've sown in thought. You cannot think one way and live another. You cannot plant thorns and harvest roses. The law is absolute and impartial. What you think about, you bring about. The mind is astonishingly fertile. It will grow anything you choose to feed it. Feed it ideas of strength, faith, gratitude, and persistence, and you will grow a character capable of achieving greatness. Feed it images of fear, failure, and resentment, and it will grow a life of limitation. The mind doesn't rest. It is always working, always absorbing, always producing results from the materials it's given. The only question is, are you giving it the right materials? Are you planting the kind of thoughts that will yield the harvest you desire? Every great achievement began as a seed, an idea planted in the mind of someone who believed it could grow. The airplane, the light bulb, the skyscraper, the cure for disease, all were once invisible thoughts in someone's imagination. Those ideas were watered with faith, nourished by persistence, and protected from the weeds of doubt until they matured into reality. The same principle applies to every individual life. The goals you set, the dreams you nurture, the picture you hold of yourself, these are your seeds, and if you hold them firmly, feed them daily with belief, and act consistently toward them, they must grow. They cannot do otherwise. The law guarantees it. But here lies the danger. The law works both ways. The mind will grow weeds with the same enthusiasm that it grows flowers. If you neglect it, if you allow negative thoughts to take root, they will multiply quickly. Thoughts of worry, envy, or self-pity are weeds that choke out the healthy plants of confidence and purpose. And like weeds in a field, they require no cultivation. They grow easily, naturally, if the field is left unattended. That is why you must guard your mind with the same care a farmer gives his crops. You must pull out the weeds of fear and doubt the moment they appear. You must replace them with thoughts of courage, gratitude, and hope, for if you do not control your thinking will control you. The truth is, your outer world is a mirror of your inner world. What you see in your circumstances is a reflection of what you have been thinking over time. If you see lack, it is because your thoughts have been focused on lack. If you see opportunity, it is because your thoughts have been tuned to opportunity. Nothing happens by accident. Life moves in harmony with the thoughts you consistently entertain. To change your world, you must first change what you plant in your mind. Think of your thoughts as living forces. Each thought you hold sets in motion a chain of events, small, invisible at first, but persistent. A single idea, when repeated with emotion and belief, begins to draw to itself circumstances, people, and opportunities aligned with its nature. This is not magic. It is the natural process of cause and effect. Your mind sends out vibrations that attract what harmonizes with them. Think success, and you begin to act in ways that lead to success. Think failure, and you unconsciously create the conditions that make failure inevitable. Every result in your life, good or bad, can be traced back to a seed once planted in thought. So the question becomes, what kind of garden are you cultivating within yourself? If you want a life of peace, plant thoughts of peace. If you want abundance, plant thoughts of service and creativity. If you want happiness, plant gratitude and kindness. You cannot reap one harvest while planting another. The mind is not a mystery. It is a magnificent mechanism that gives you precisely what you ask of it. Train yourself to think only on that which you wish to bring into being. Speak only of that which you desire. When fear whispers, replace it with faith. When doubt creeps in, replace it with determination. The mind will obey whatever master you set over it. The choice is yours every day, every hour, every moment. Will you plant weeds or wheat, fear or faith? The soil does not care, but your life will depend on what you decide to plant. There comes a time in every person's life when they must stop drifting and take the helm of their own mind. Until that moment arrives, they move as a passenger rather than a captain, tossed by circumstance, influenced by opinion, directed by the winds of chance. But the instant one decides to think deliberately, to fix his mind upon a clear and worthy goal, everything begins to change. The world itself seems to rearrange. Opportunities appear where before there were none, and strength rises where weakness once lived. That is the hidden power of purposeful thinking. It transforms not only your future, but the very quality of your present existence. Most people never learn to think with purpose. They mistake mental activity for thought. Their minds are busy but not directed. They think about what they don't want, they replay their mistakes, they worry about tomorrow, and then wonder why their lives move in circles. but those who learn to use the mind as an instrument, who aim their thoughts like an arrow toward a target. They begin to live a life of direction and clarity. For when the mind is fixed on a definite purpose, the universe itself seems to respond to that definiteness. Ideas come, strength comes, guidance comes, all drawn to the person who knows what he wants and refuses to lose sight of it. The difference between drifting and directing is the difference between wishing and achieving. The one who drifts wishes for a better life, but takes no real steps toward it, because his thoughts are scattered. The one who directs his mind toward a purpose transforms every wish into a plan, every dream into a course of action. The act of choosing a goal is like striking a match in a dark room. Suddenly, you can see where you are and where to go. Without that light, every path looks the same, and confusion becomes your companion. That is why so few ever achieve true success. They never take the time to decide what success means to them. When you know what you want, truly and specifically, you give your mind something to work on day and night. The mind becomes like a magnet, drawing towards you the ideas, people, and circumstances that align with your goal. The clearer your vision, the stronger the pull. It is not that life suddenly becomes easier. It is that your energy is no longer divided. You are no longer fighting against yourself. You are moving in a single, unified direction. Every thought, every action, every habit begins to support that image you hold in your mind. And soon, what once seemed distant becomes not only possible but inevitable. The person who fails, on the other hand, allows the mind to wander without discipline. He thinks about what he fears, about what might go wrong, about the opinions of others. He lets outside conditions determine his thinking, and therefore his destiny. Such a person is like a sailor who adjusts his course according to every passing wave, never realizing that the helm was his to control all along. The truth is simple. You cannot control the winds, but you can always adjust your sails. You cannot command the world, but you can command your thoughts. And in mastering your thoughts, you begin to master the world around you. One of the greatest discoveries a person can make is that life responds to clarity. The moment you decide what you truly want, life begins to cooperate. Not in an instant, not by magic, but steadily, persistently, predictably. The obstacles that once seemed immovable begin to shift. The delays that once frustrated you reveal themselves as preparation. Every step, even the ones that seem backward, becomes part of a greater movement toward your goal. The difference is that now you can see meaning where before there was only confusion. Purpose gives life order. It turns random events into part of a design. If you study those who have accomplished great things, in science, art, business, or human service, you will find one common thread: they knew exactly what they wanted. Their goals were clear, and their thinking was consistent with those goals. They refused to think thoughts that contradicted their vision. They guarded their minds like a fortress. They spoke of their goals as though they were already real, and they acted each day in alignment with that belief. Over time, the power of such focus becomes unstoppable. It bends reality itself, not through luck or chance, but through the steady force of directed thought. You can begin this process right now. Take one clear idea, one goal that stirs your heart, and hold it before your mind as though it were already achieved. Let it occupy your imagination. See it, feel it, live it in your thoughts until it becomes a part of you. Then act as though it were on its way, because it is. Every action you take in harmony with that vision strengthens its reality. Every doubt you indulge weakens it. Choose faith over doubt, clarity over confusion, purpose over drifting. Once you begin thinking with purpose, you will notice a quiet confidence growing within you. The storms of life no longer throw you off course, because you know where you're headed. The opinions of others lose their power, because your direction comes from within. You will work harder, yes, but it will no longer feel like struggle. It will feel like progress. Each day will bring a sense of movement, and with that movement comes joy. For nothing brings greater peace to a human being than to know that his thoughts, his actions, and his life are all moving in the same direction. The moment you make a deliberate decision to take charge of your thoughts, something powerful begins to awaken within you. A sense of ownership, of inner command. You begin to realize that your life is not governed by chance, not by luck, not by the opinions of others, but by the quiet, persistent patterns of your own thinking. The mind, once allowed to drift aimlessly, now becomes your greatest tool. And when you learn to use it deliberately, to focus it on what you truly desire. It will open doors that you never imagined could exist. The world outside you begins to shift, not because it changes first, but because you do. Each of us walks through life surrounded by a kind of invisible atmosphere made up of our own thoughts. Those thoughts, though unseen, radiate outward and influence everything we touch. Our work, our relationships, our health, our happiness. People often wonder why certain individuals seem to attract opportunity, while others struggle endlessly. The reason lies in the state of their inner world. The person whose mind is filled with positive expectation, faith, and gratitude sends out a vibration that draws to him the people and conditions that match those thoughts. The one who constantly thinks of lack, failure, or disappointment sends out a very different vibration, and life responds in kind. You cannot think thoughts of defeat and expect victory. You cannot fill your mind with envy and expect peace. Life is a mirror, and it reflects faithfully whatever you place before it. The only way to change what you see in that reflection is to change what you are thinking about. If you wish to experience more success, begin to think thoughts of success, not someday, but now. Imagine yourself as the kind of person who achieves, who grows, who contributes. Feel what it would be like to live that reality. The mind cannot distinguish between the vividly imagined and the actually experienced. The emotions you attach to your thoughts give them life, and those emotions set in motion the forces that bring your ideas into being. This is why you must never allow fear to linger in your mind. Fear is the great destroyer. It freezes initiative, clouds judgment, and drains vitality. It whispers lies, convincing you that you cannot do what you most desire. But fear, like a shadow, has no real substance. It exists only where light is absent. The light of understanding dispels it instantly. When you understand that your thoughts create your reality, you realize that fear is nothing more than an untrained imagination turned against itself. Replace it with faith. Faith in your purpose, faith in your ability, faith in the law of cause and effect. The same energy that once sustained your fears will begin to fuel your progress. You must also learn to think independently. The majority of people borrow their thoughts from others, from the news, from social opinion, from family or peers. They rarely question whether those borrowed ideas serve them. They think as they are told to think, and they live as they are told to live. But true power begins the moment you start thinking for yourself. When you stop measuring your worth by comparison and begin to measure it by growth. When you no longer accept limitations simply because others believe in them. Independent thought is the foundation of freedom. It allows you to design your own life rather than live someone else's version of it. Directing your thoughts also means being selective about the influences you allow into your mind. The books you read, the conversations you entertain, the images you absorb, all of these are seeds planted in the soil of your consciousness. Be intentional about what you feed your mind. Seek knowledge that uplifts and challenges you. Spend time with people who inspire you to think higher, act better, and believe deeper. The environment you create around yourself will either strengthen your vision or weaken it. Guard it as you would a sacred garden. For what grows there will eventually become the landscape of your life. When you begin to think constructively and deliberately, your actions naturally follow. You start to see opportunities where before there were only obstacles. Your mind becomes alert, creative, responsive. Problems that once overwhelmed you become challenges to solve. And because your energy is directed toward progress rather than worry, your confidence begins to grow. This inner confidence becomes visible, people can sense it, and they respond to it. You start to attract circumstances that reflect your new state of mind. A better job, new relationships, unexpected assistance. None of this is coincidence. It is the law of thought in action. Understand this. Every great achievement is preceded by a change in thinking. Before a man can build a bridge, he must first build it in his mind. Before a woman can rise to success, she must first see herself as successful. Nothing appears in the physical world without first existing in the mental one. That is why every change you desire must begin with thought. To change your life, you must first change your thinking, and then persist in that new direction until reality conforms to it. Each morning when you wake, ask yourself, what am I going to think about today? Will you think about fear, limitation, and lack? Or will you think about growth, opportunity, and abundance? The mind is yours to control. It will produce whatever you demand of it, and it will do so faithfully, day after day. Train it with discipline and patience, and it will reward you beyond measure. For when your thoughts become aligned with your purpose, you begin to live not as a product of chance, but as a creator of destiny. There is a moment in life when a person begins to see clearly that their mind is not merely a place where thoughts appear and disappear, but the very workshop of destiny. When this understanding dawns, everything changes. You begin to notice how every result you've ever experienced was first built, piece by piece, through thought. How every step forward or backward began as an idea you entertained and believed. This realization is not just enlightening, it is liberating. It means that no matter where you are right now, you hold within yourself the power to transform it. You do not need to wait for circumstances to change, for people to cooperate, or for luck to appear. The transformation begins when you take command of your thoughts. The mind will always reflect whatever is impressed upon it most frequently and most deeply. It is not enough to think positively for a few minutes a day, and then spend the rest of your time filled with doubt and worry. You cannot sow good seeds in the morning and poison in the afternoon and expect a healthy harvest. The mind requires consistency, discipline, and faith. You must learn to sustain a dominant thought, one clear, powerful idea that represents who you wish to become and what you wish to achieve. Feed it daily with imagination, with belief, with gratitude, and your actions will begin to align naturally with it. Gradually, it becomes your new way of being. When you reach this state, life begins to take on a sense of order and harmony. You start to understand that nothing happens by accident. You meet the right people, encounter the right opportunities, receive the right insights at just the right time. From the outside, it may appear as coincidence, but in truth, it is the reflection of the mental image you've held firmly within. Thought, when backed by emotion and action, moves unseen forces that shape events in your favor. This is not wishful thinking. It is the natural operation of cause and effect working through the medium of the mind. It's worth remembering that every great life, every person who has accomplished something meaningful, began exactly where you are now. They had doubts, fears, and obstacles just as real as yours. What set them apart was not that they were born lucky or gifted, but that they learned to persist in thought until their vision became reality. They refused to let temporary appearances convince them otherwise. They trained their minds to hold fast to the image of success, even when failure seemed certain. And in doing so, they discovered that the power to change one's life does not lie outside in the world, but within, in the steady focus of thought. You, too, can develop this power. Begin by observing your thoughts as you would the flow of a river. Notice where they go when you are not directing them. Do they flow toward worry, toward regret, toward limitation? If so, you must change their course. Replace each thought of fear with one of faith. Replace every thought of resentment with gratitude. Replace doubt with determination. This may seem difficult at first, because your old patterns will try to pull you back. But with persistence, new habits of thinking will take root, and soon they will carry you effortlessly toward your desired destination. It is also essential to act upon your thoughts. Thinking alone is not enough, it must be followed by movement. The moment you begin to act in harmony with your dominant idea, you send a signal to the universe that you are serious. Action cements belief. Each step you take, no matter how small, strengthens the thought and accelerates its realization. Action turns thought into form. Without it, even the finest idea remains only potential, a seed left unplanted. But when thought and action unite, they form a power that nothing can resist. Guard your mind each day as you would guard your most valuable treasure. Refuse to allow negativity to take residence there. Do not dwell on what is missing, but on what is possible. Remember that your thoughts are living things. They are energy in motion, and energy always attracts its own kind. When you think of abundance, you begin to attract abundance. When you think of kindness, you begin to experience kindness. When you think of purpose, you begin to feel directed. It is not a matter of superstition, but of law. The law that your outer world must always reflect the inner pattern you create. As you continue to direct your thoughts toward growth, you will notice a quiet transformation within yourself. Confidence begins to replace uncertainty. Calm replaces confusion. You start to move through life with poise and assurance because you now understand the principle that governs it. You are no longer swayed by circumstance or opinion. You think independently, act deliberately, and live intentionally. You have become, in the truest sense, the master of your own mind. Every day offers a new opportunity to practice this mastery. Every thought is a brushstroke on the canvas of your life. You can paint with colors of hope, courage, and purpose, or with shades of fear, doubt, and hesitation. The choice belongs entirely to you. And when you make that choice consciously, consistently, with faith in your ability to create, your life will begin to take on the shape of your finest thoughts. For it is a truth that cannot be denied. You become exactly what you think about, and what you think about, you inevitably bring to life. So now, as we bring these ideas together, remember this: the greatest power you will ever possess is already within you. The power to think, to choose, to create. Everything you have been, everything you are, and everything you will become begins with the pictures you hold in your mind. You do not need to wait for opportunity, for approval, or for the right moment. The right moment is the one in which you decide to take control of your thoughts and direct them toward the life you wish to live. Your mind is not a servant of chance, it is the builder of your destiny. What you dwell upon, you attract. What you expect, you prepare for. What you believe, you become. Every thought you permit to take root in your consciousness sets in motion a chain of events that shapes your future. If you fill your mind with fear, life will respond with reasons to be afraid. But if you fill it with faith, courage, and purpose, life will respond with opportunities that call forth your best. From this moment forward, make a firm decision to think deliberately. Think about what you want, not what you fear. Think of progress, not limitation. Think of service, not struggle. Refuse to let the world imprint its doubts upon you. You have been given a magnificent mind, capable of transforming any circumstance into victory. Use it wisely, and it will open doors that no one else can close. There will be challenges. There always are. But you will face them with a calm certainty born of understanding. You will know that every event, every delay, every setback is simply part of the process by which your dominant thoughts are being shaped into reality. Hold fast to your vision, nurture it daily with belief, and act upon it with persistence. For the law of life is unchanging. We become exactly what we think about. So think greatly. Think generously. Think with faith and with love. Fill your mind with ideas that lift, that build, that create. Guard those thoughts as you would guard your most valuable treasure. For in truth, they are your treasure. The person who controls their thinking controls their world. And when you learn to do that, when you finally understand that the key to your future lies within your own thoughts, you will have discovered not just a secret, but the greatest secret of all, that your mind, properly directed, can create a life of success, peace, and fulfillment beyond measure.